It's 2024, and I'm picking up where I left off in 2023, getting deeper and deeper into amp modeling. And finally, yes, I know, a bit late, Line 6 Helix finally here in the studio. So the question is, am I late to the party, or have I completely missed the boat?
Hey, Dan.
Hey, man, I was wondering what happened to you.
Me too.
Hey there, I'm Dan, the self-proclaimed lonely rocker. Thanks for joining me today. Actually, I'm the not-so-lonely rocker today because we've got Marco. If you've been following this channel, you've met Marco before. He's from Canada's largest musical instrument retailer. That would be Long McQuaid. Now, the reason I'm mentioning Long McQuaid, because technically it's his day off today. But Marco is definitely an expert when it comes to pretty much all things guitar and amplifiers, and he certainly loves amp modeling. I can credit actually two people that have really pushed me in the direction. One is John from Sonic Drive Studios. He's been on my channel before, a good friend of mine, and as well Marco, who's been a big help to me and a lot of my recent purchases. Was instrumental in the Schecter.
I don't know if you can see this
Right, the 5150, a little bit off camera there. Anyways, but anyways, I want to thank Long McQuaid. First and foremost, they actually connected me to Yamaha Canada. For those that you don't know, Yamaha actually owns Line 6. And with a nice introduction from Long McQuaid, I connected Yamaha, and they graciously sent out the Helix so we can play around it here in the studio. It's on long-term loan. Who knows what can happen? Maybe we can make it permanent. We'll see what's happening. Anyways, so I wanted to bring in Marco, and again, thanks for representing Long McQuaid, even though it is your day off. The guy never stops, right? Yeah. So, but you guys have been great. I've been a customer of Long McQuaid for literally decades now, and it's been a pleasure associating with you. We've done some great videos together, and we wanted to dive into the Helix and see, is it the right thing for me? I mean, I am admittedly late to the party. This thing's been out. This is the 9th year.
Yeah. Coming on 9th year.
9th year that the Helix has been out, and there's a lot of new products on the marketplace. Can it still compete in 2024? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about. All right, so here's sort of the challenge for me. I tend to overthink things, but I do my research. I don't spend frivolously. I'm very familiar with the legacy of Line 6. I've had Line 6 products here for many, many years. I've covered even the pod, still have it here, and I covered that a couple of times. It's amazing how well that's held up. But my main concern about the Helix and why I haven't rushed out to buy one, and it's a question that a lot of people are asking, is it still relevant 2024? Because we're coming on to the 9th year for this device. So for anyone looking to purchase this, is that something they should be concerned about?
I don't really think so, because the product has been around for quite a while for sure, but it's been heavily supported in that time with plethora of new updates, either via amp models or effects, or last year with the cabs being a lot more leaned out to have lower DSP load on the unit, and also they just completely redid how they sound, and you can angle the microphone in different ways now. It's a lot more dynamic, and that just makes the world a better place for the Helix, just because it can now use that DSP allocation for maybe other more intensive effects like pitch shifting, or you can stuff certain amp models together you couldn't before, things like that. I also find, even though it's like the second oldest modeler in the marketplace right now next to the Kemper, its ease of use is probably the best besides Neural's Quad Cortex and the newest Tone Master.
What was it like to play this thing in 2015? I mean, it must have felt like driving a rocket ship.
For sure. I mean,
I'm sure it's changed. I'm sure the internal guts have changed since then, but I mean, it was pretty future-proof considering how relevant it still is.
They've stuffed a lot of things in here that are definitely not going to age poorly, and like whatever the guys are at Line 6 are doing software-wise, they're like wizards, being able to just finagle stuff to work so a lot faster in the future. I don't know. I mean, like, for something that is this old, it is really all-encompassing. It can handle a lot of processing power. It has great sounds in there. It's plenty flexible. The company supports it heavily. Also, they're very easy to get a hold of compared to most of the other modelers. Like, I mean, Fractal is regarded as like the king, top of the heap type of thing, but can't really try those super easily.
So like direct order, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you got to take a bigger chance on that if you're a type of guy that needs to work around with the workflow. Because ultimately, I think most of these things can sound pretty great, pretty much the same. It just depends on how easy it is to work with and how much the company is going to support it. Because like you can go anywhere on the planet pretty much and go into a retailer and find a Helix product. So they're a lot easier to service in that regard too. Let's say you're on like a fly gig or whatever and your HX Stomp or whatever breaks. There's probably a Line 6 retailer somewhere that might be able to fix it, or get you a replacement, or you can just you'll probably have all your patches saved somewhere and just download it onto a new replacement and you're safe that way. If you work on some other infrastructures, it might be a little more difficult. So
that's actually, that's one of the things that I thought about, because I have to consider I have a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Okay. Before this YouTube channel, I had one amp, a couple of cabs, and a few pedals. It was enough for me, But as you get deeper into this, I mean, part of this experience is sharing the experience of gear and things like that. So more and more and more products entered the space here. But in terms of creating content for an audience, I mean, as readily accessible it is, it's an indication that there's a lot of
gigantic.
The community is huge. And also, I mean, I'm not like from some famous band, like, why do you want to hear what I have to say? But we're all in this community together sharing experience. And my friend John from Sonic Drive Studio, he's been in my ear about getting a Helix. He loves the Helix and really pushed me to get one and said that it's a great community. It's a great opportunity to learn and also to share since I am making the video. So it's a big selling feature for me. I mean, obviously, I've just been wondering if there's a new device coming around the corner. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Yeah. But also something that I have to stress here that's really important is that as a guitar player, we all have different needs. Now, my main interest is as a studio guitar player. I have a studio here and I love recording and I'm always looking for efficiencies. And what I realized was a big value in a device like this is the I/O, because suddenly this becomes your audio interface, your monitoring device. You've got inserts here, so you can loop in,
you got microphone inputs. You got plenty of effects loops. You can integrate other pedals into this thing if you really want to. I mean, like, it has so much effects that you wouldn't really. I mean, you could if you want to. Like, if you just have like an oil can delay or something super obscure that's not in the Helix just yet, go nuts. You can stuff whatever you want in there. And I mean, like, people still have like a pretty big desire to get a Helix. Like, I'm working out along McQuaid, I sell tons of like, not just like the full size, but the HX Stomp, Helix LT, Podgo, like they all perform very, very well at their respective price points. And even with the newer stuff coming out, like the fact that there's an established community, plenty of YouTubers to help along with how to work this thing, plenty of people have owned it so they know how to work within its infrastructure. It's in, especially since getting some of these modelers can feel kind of overwhelming, and that's kind of like the main con some people might dish out for digital modelers of being like, oh, it's hard to use, it's a sandbox, blah 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 blah. But when you have such an overwhelming amount of people that do work with these things, it makes your life a lot easier, so you don't have to be totally alone working with this thing. And I mean, Line 6 already makes it pretty easy, in my opinion, to navigate stuff. Everything's color coordinated. You have the scribble strips on this thing. You have so much memory to save presets, like 5 extra like users profiles with 32 band. You have almost 1,000, I think, of endless things to do with. So I don't know.
So, I mean, the one argument that people are barking about out in social media is they talk about DSP. Now, being a device that originally came out in 2015, now the regular firmware updates, I mean, this product has evolved substantially from 2015. That's really important to note, is that obviously this was future-proof. Well, it's proving the test of time at but 9 years now, but they've been able to upgrade the functionality of this device substantially over the years, and the device itself was robust enough that it could handle those updates. As a studio player, and this is something I think is really important because depending on what you're looking for, and people are often talk about live or jamming, but this is a studio. DSP really, and we talk about processing and how it can replicate certain amplifiers or certain effects and things like that. But people often talk about the volume of blocks they can run at once. Now, when you're in a studio, I tend to record dry. Now, I'm not looking to give up my amplifiers. First and foremost, it's important to know that I can reamp through this thing, right? So if you use this as a front end for your studio, you hook up this to your computer by USB. You can plug your guitar in. You get direct monitoring, right?
Yeah.
So that means zero latency. You're actually hearing what's going into the Helix. You can set up your favorite tone, and you can get that feeling when you're recording, but you can track that tone plus simultaneously record a DI track. And then you can reamp that back through the device utilizing any tones that you have in the Helix, or you can create a loop, and then you can loop a real amp through. I actually record direct. I don't record my cab, so I can take it through my load box, take an amp into here. I can load my cab IRs here. This is what really got me excited about the Helix, because it's got tons of I/O. And I'm not really interested in creating patches that are, 12 amps deep and all this stuff. I just would never do that.
People focus on that to like a fault. Like, how much processing power do most people really need? You could argue that maybe more DSP means better modeling, but honestly, the modeling in here is still pretty spectacular for being such an old unit. And like, you can try it out for yourself. I mean, Helix Native is free for 15 days if you want to just try out the Helix sounds. And that's also pretty nice. Like, you don't have to actually go to a store, plug this in, blah, 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 blah. You can just try out the software on a plugin, see if you gel with it or not. Like, that's so awesome. There's not many companies that give you that sort of risk-free approach to trying out their product before making the plunge. And I respect Line 6 heavily for that. I mean, and when you do buy your hardware Line 6 product, you do get a discount on Helix Native if you want to keep it. I think it's like $100 it becomes. But besides that, like, the DSP is pretty great. You can do some pretty complicated signal chains, especially if you integrate amps, like hardware stuff like Dan was saying, into your recording setup. Also, if you're a recording guy, you don't need to have these super complicated signal paths. Although, like, these things are so powerful, it's like a fault. Like, you'll just end up start adding stuff just for the sake of it. And then, like, I don't know, like, for me, if you manage where you place stuff on your signal chain appropriately, you'll have so much DSP you kind of don't know what to do with at some point. Like, if on your top line of the Helix, you have like your dry effects, like your pitch shifting, overdrives, compression, and then your amp model. And then the second line, you use that for your like wet stuff. Like, you've split up two, like the delays and reverbs can be pretty DSP intensive if they're like the heliosphere or tessellator or whatever, or like certain crazy shimmery reverbs that have some octave stuff to them. Like, it really depends. Like, those things can be pretty intensive. And then on the other side, you can have like your pitch shifting, which is pretty high, and then the certain amp models can be pretty high, or you can run dual amp. Whatever. If you put things in the right spot, you'll seldom run out of DSP power. And of course, if you use them with like real cabinets or power amps or real amps, world's your oyster pretty much as far as a recording setup. I don't want to keep going on.
No, but isn't this like a modern day modeling problem? Because as I said, I mean, I used to gig, I'm based in north of Toronto. We used to gig in Toronto. I played clubs all the time. I had a single Marshall amplifier, a 4x10 Marshall cab. I had a multi-effects rack and a couple pedals, and that's it. I didn't need multiple amplifiers there. I mean,
when's enough is enough.
When enough. It's like become this modern day problem. Play modelers for that, where you need, I need to stack 14 amplifiers and cabs, and it's ridiculous. I mean, okay, we're creating new sounds. Stacking is just a way of shaping a sound. Call it a tone. I get it, but I think people kind of go a little bit crazy thinking that they need to stack that much. I mean, just because it's there, it's not always the best solution.
Besides just stacking stuff, like, I love the fact that you can run parallel paths with overdrives and distortions. Like, a very common type of trick people will use in like some more extreme metal. They'll take like an HM2 or a metal zone or whatever and record it in parallel to their main sound, and then just blend a little bit of that nastiness into it. It sounds pretty evil. You can do that super easily on this thing. And also, there aren't many dry pedals that make your life easier by having an effects loop. Like, I know there's a couple Lichlerm pedals that I think John from Sonic Drive Studios has showcased a bunch, and they're a fantastic company, where you can run stuff in parallel, and that's super cool for like a dry effect, like a distortion. And as you're recording, you don't have to do as much to do all these different tracking. You can just do it as a dry signal path that Dan was saying, and then just reamp it through here with those parameters or those settings, and
Actually, if you got Helix Native, you don't even have to reamp it. You could
Oh
just
yeah,
use
for sure.
the,
Yeah,
use
you
the
just use the
plugin.
thing, and then if you save whatever. Oh yeah, and the other cool thing, if you do want to go to someone else's recording studio, or if someone uses Helix a lot at home and they want to go to your studio and play on one, they can just save their stuff at home, port it over to here, and drag and drop, and it's in the Helix. So that's super. I mean, I don't know. I love the portability, the ease of use, the sounds. I just sold like a couple of these ones to a buddy, a couple buddies of mine that come through the store pretty frequently, and they've been happy with it. At first, they were like, "Should I get a quad cortex or whatever?" And those are great investments too, especially since Neural is integrating the plugin stuff. It's just a great unit. I'm happy that Line 6 has been able to support it in ways.
Well, I think that's an important consideration is that, like, Fender has the ToneMaster Pro. I mean, Fender is a huge company, and they're pretty late to the party in developing their own modeler. Fender has a lot of resources, but Fender's a big company, and they're going to lean on things that make the company money.
Yeah.
Time will tell how committed they are to the ToneMaster Pro, because now everyone's like, oh, it's quad processing, quad core processing, and all of this stuff. But they actually came out with a limited amount of amplifiers.
Yeah.
They obviously wanted to get it into the marketplace, so time will tell if they're going to be that
Tough
committed.
market. Yeah, I mean, it's like Line 6 is
That's what they do.
a modeler making company. Fractal is a modeler making company. Neural primarily makes is plugins, even though the plugins were just a means for them to fund the quad cortex.
But they're still a pretty young company, so
yeah,
again, time will
yeah,
tell.
for sure. I mean, all these companies want to like make sure their flagship product works. For Fender, it's more of like, I don't want to say a novelty at the risk of sounding controversial, but possibly. I mean, who knows what could happen?
We don't know.
Yeah,
we just don't know.
they could just abandon it in a year. Who knows?
Listen, it's happened, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
companies like Fender
Didn't
need
they have
to.
the Cyber Twins or something a little
Yes,
while ago?
yeah,
Yeah, those
yeah.
were interesting.
So, so not to say, I mean, if that's your flavor, that's fine. And that's something that I kept hearing in my head is that Line 6 is, when you think of amp modeling, I mean, I cracked open my Pod 2.0 for the first time in years, and then I realized I didn't even know, when I had it, I used to just twist dials and that was that. But
Yeah.
they actually had amp and cabinet emulation. You could actually turn off the cabinets.
Yeah.
So I actually recently did a video where I did a blind shootout with some budget modelers, and I turned off the cab emulation and then ran them all through the same modern day cab IR.
Mhm.
And nobody considered the Pod the worst one, and it was by 20 years the oldest device in the list. So there's a lot of confidence with Line 6.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you could make the argument that the amp modeling of amps specifically hasn't changed a whole ton over the last like God knows how long these things have been around for. It's really the cabs, which just speaks volumes to how important cabinets and microphones are ultimately to your tone. Like, I mean, for years people were saying the Helix wasn't as good because you have to port in your own IRs because the cabs, they suck, like just straight up. But I mean, with that recent update last year, I find myself just sticking with the cab sims that are already in 3.5 and beyond, as opposed to just loading my own IRs. Although, even though like these do play nice with IRs and you can do like, dual cabs or dual IR setups or whatever, it works really nice that way. But I don't know, like,
I have to say though, the Apple computer model is they have to update their computers every year. It's all about selling hardware. I mean, Line 6 could do that if they want to, but based on what you're saying, Line 6 has learned to become efficient with their existing hardware without saying, like, less than a couple of years ago when Apple released the Mac Studio, I was desperate to get a new computer, and I was, sucking wind on my old Mac, and I said, now's the one. I was so proud to have the newest Mac, and it lasted for like less than a year, and then all of a sudden the Mac Studio M2 suddenly came out, and suddenly I have an old computer.
The other thing is, like, a lot of people will use these like for their livelihood, so it doesn't look very good on a company when they introduce a new piece of hardware every 2 years or something. It's like, okay, that's nice, but having to buy another multi-$1,000 thing to be able to literally do your job, or like you feel like you need to do it to retain whatever you have going on, I think is a bit not narrow-minded, but maybe a bit. It's gonna harm people more than help them if they focus too hard on the newest thing every single like second. So having a model that sticks around for a decade is, like, I think, like, critical for any modeler coming out. Like, if it comes out, you need to have that security that you're gonna have it for a very long time, because it's also like learning a new instrument sometimes with how the infrastructure work, where things are, how to dial certain things in. I mean, they make it pretty easy for a lot of the newer age ones, especially with the quad and Helix. And a fractal can be a bit too tweakable to a fault for some people, where you can like change like impedance curves, change tubes, and also
Like change the filament inside tubes. I think
maybe yeah.
they get pretty crazy.
I can't wait for them to change it to make it so like, I wonder what country of origin this amp was made in, or like I don't know, something funny like that.
I feel pretty confident in saying all the considerations that we took into account here is that the Helix still has great value in 2024. If you're looking at it as an all-in-one recording device, amp modeler solution, you can drive your home studio with this 100%. And actually, you're going to save money because I think you're going to spend, at the low end, you're going to spend $500, I'd say, on a decent audio interface. And if you want a few more inputs, you're going to probably spend closer to $800, $2,000 maybe. Then you factor in the cost of the amp modeler. If you're buying plugins, you never stop at one plugin. So this is retailing now for about 2,400 Canadian.
2349
Canadian. So factoring in audio interface, guitar amp cabs, and just expression pedal that doesn't generally come with an audio interface. So then you're going to spend another $100 or more on a decent expression pedal. So I think you're still getting great value. I know I was worried about computer-based stuff. They're not. Amps are forever. As long as they make the parts, anyone can service them. That's really my hesitation. But this device has proven to be robust. And as a YouTube channel looking to create great content, it's a huge community out there, and everyone loves talking about this. So I certainly don't think I can lose in that department. So that being said, I would not hesitate recommending someone picking up a Helix in 2024. But neither Marco or myself have any insight into Line 6's plans. People ad nauseum have discussed whether or not there's going to be a new Helix. So first question, you can answer first. In 2024, is Line 6 going to introduce a new Helix or something new?
I think since the HX1 just came out, and that's primarily one effect at a time, it's pretty standard to assume the next thing they'll come out is probably like an amp.
The HX2.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Helix 2 would be crazy, but like I think it's just going to be, well, not just, but like it's going to be maybe around the same price, but maybe a little higher, of like an amp pedal thing where it's all the amp models just stuffed in like one pedal. For guys that just maybe want the amp modeling and don't want the effects, you can get that. So that would be really cool.
So you think they're just going to, so Line 6 is in a branch mentality right now where they, this is the heartbeat and the trunk of what they do. And now they're building peripherals. They're branching off the main. So you don't see a new flagship hardware device in 2024.
Maybe not this year. Maybe
this year. This is really the quick.
Yeah, this year probably. No, I don't think so. But I mean, NAMM is this month, so who knows?
You never know. They've been very, very, very tight-lipped.
Sorry, I dated your video.
That's okay. Sorry.
You said points. It's fine.
It is 2024. It's the first video of 2024. If you're watching this next year, thank you for sticking around. No, but look, we never know. And now, my opinion, I don't know if it's going to be this year. My luck, I'm going to secure one, and then they'll suddenly have a new one. But I think I almost don't think it matters. I think Line 6 is proven is that they support the products.
Yep.
And I think if and when they do come out with a new flagship modeler, I think it's going to be a new product line.
Oh, it has to be. Yeah.
I think they'll continue to support Helix as long as they can, because it's such a huge community out there, and I don't think they want to just suddenly let them all down. And I think that's one of the reasons why Line 6 hasn't rushed out a new device. If you use the Apple mentality, you always got to have the latest and greatest every year, and it's really a cash grab for Apple. But I think they're confident enough in their product, and they're servicing their very dedicated customer base. So I think if and when they do release a new product, I actually think it's going to be a new product line, and it'll have its own development. Obviously, it'll borrow from the legacy of Line 6 technology, but that will allow the Helix to continue even beyond that point. I have no insight into this, and whether or not it's going to be this year or not, I really don't know because they're very tight-lipped. But that's what I think is going to happen. But let's say we get an email tomorrow morning and there's suddenly a brand new Helix 2 or the new, whatever you want to call it, new device.
Yeah, what are you going to be mad about that it doesn't have?
What it doesn't have. What do you hope that it will have?
Yeah. So for me, I would love to have power amp emulation. There's already like dedicated preamp models on here, which is super cool if you use this with a power amp. Like I know some people will use like the HX Stomp with the Seymour Duncan Power Stage to push a cabinet on stage because they like the way that pushes air over like an FRFR, or if you're using it with like a tube amp, you can just use the preamp model here and use the tube amp as just like a power section. That's pretty cool. But if you want to integrate like a preamp pedal, like Rev has their G series pedals, Lichlarum has the Gehenna, KSR has their series, whatever. There's like a ton of companies that are making preamp pedals that sound really, really good, but there's not as much of an influx of power amp emulation. Even like for plugins, there's not really a ton. So like, I think that'd be really cool to also mix and match some of the preamp models with the power amps. Like, oh, what would a Fender sound like with a Marshall style power section? What would that feel like, or whatever? Like, maybe it doesn't sound any different, but the point is, like, having the option is nice, and it might not take a whole lot of models. Like, ideally, you'll have your EL34 model, 6L6 model, KT88, etc. Just to help along maybe with some other integration, like if this is meant to help along as a recording hub, to have those would be really cool with extra pedals you might grab or have in the studio. Maybe you want to blend those pedals with the amp models in the Helix. That'd be really cool. Some people might also want a touchscreen. I'm kind of impartial to the whole touchscreen thing. I know there is this, I've heard great arguments for, instead of a touchscreen, what about some type of input so you can have a mouse to control stuff on here too? That would be maybe a little different, or ultimately,
See those guitar players on stage.
Yeah, exactly. Well, everyone games these days, so they're gonna bring their game and everything. But or not, if not, then I like a Bluetooth connection.
I can see all the debates in the forums now, the people arguing between a mouse and a trackball, right?
Yeah, which has better tone.
Which is better tone. Okay, so you'd like to see some more component modeling, so you can mix and match components, and another way to interface with the device.
Yes. Oh yeah, and the biggest thing, please, for the love of God, don't make your tuner a hold feature. Just make it a touch, or at least like press two buttons.
How about an always-on tuner somewhere?
Or an always-on tuner somewhere on the screen would be very nice. Kemper and Fractal offer this. One of the main things I love a lot about some of the Boss products is, again, they have the one tap, or sorry, you press two buttons at the same time on the GT1000 core, and you get your tuner. It's just a very small quality of life change, but it feels really important to have, especially if you're playing. I mean, this is more of like a live problem. But even like if you're just at home, and I personally get bothered.
It's like you want like a hands-free, you just have to touch your nose with your tongue, and then the tuner will tune it. All right, so
that's a small thing I would prefer. But yeah, I mean.
Okay, so for me, because I've stated a few times that for me recording is important to me. Now, I find I just don't get so into the models. If it sounds good to me, it sounds good to me. I know people like to debate comparing amp models between different devices. If it sounds good to me, it sounds good. You double track it, you pop in a mix, you throw some effects on it. I guarantee you're not going to know the difference between a real amp or any of the amp modelers. So I'm happy to take whatever they give me. So for me, I've often stated that I look at this as a recording device. So I love the fact that this is an all-in-one. It's a USB interface. Something as I see as a limitation on pretty much all of the amp modelers that are double as an interface is the connectivity. We're stuck in USB 2.0 world. I think I'd love to come a little more future-friendly. I would love to see Thunderbolt 4, USB-C at the very least, or combo, get a little better throughput. Now, it doesn't really matter because we've talked about direct monitoring, so latency is not a big issue. But all of the newer computers, especially if you're on a Mac, you've got Thunderbolt 4. I don't have any USB 2.0, or there might be a couple old USB on.
You don't have a printer anymore?
You just don't have a lot, right? And connectivity to computer is important, so I have to buy a hub and the whole other thing. So I would love to see us get away from the old USB 2.0. Not as concerned about it in terms of latency because, like I said, direct monitoring doesn't matter. But a little better throughput wouldn't hurt, and just modernize the connectivity with modern day computers. I would like to see that. We already have the microphone input. Call me greedy. I'd like to see at least two.
Not a hard ass.
This is not being designed to be a USB interface, but they do provide that service. And I think this offers features that your average USB interface can't do. You can actually create a little signal chain for your input into an interface, which you generally don't have. I mean, I've got my Focusrite here. By the way, the software that comes with the Focusrite, I can't stand it. So having something like this where you've got the screen, you can actually create some sort of signal chain in your USB, in your interface, excuse me, I think that's fantastic. So we're already doing that. So if there's room to add a couple more inputs, maybe a second preamp.
Again, having that for the Helix, and the guys over at Line 6 are great at their programming how to make things really super lean. Having another microphone input, so you can have maybe 2 singers and 2 guitar player lines, or singer, backup singer, guitar player, bass player, or whatever. Like you can have like a singular unit handle not even just like a live band, but maybe if you're just doing a quick recording. Or,
how about an optical input, so you can add an extender? You can
that would be really cool
so
too.
you can add another 8 inputs or something like that.
Whatever.
Well, I think we have enough ideas to chew on, but at this point, we'll just call it a wish list, and it'll probably end there. Well, I think that was a lot of fun. A nice way to start 2024. I spent a lot of time alone in the studio. So, Marco, thank you so much for spending some time with me.
It was a lot of fun, Dan.
I do want to thank once again Long McQuaid, as I said, Canada's largest musical instrument retailer with over 100 stores in Canada and counting. Long-McQuaid.com for all of your musical instrument needs from anywhere in the world. And if you're in Canada, well, there's one never too far away. Anyways, I want to thank Yamaha as well for hooking me up with the Helix. We're going to dive into this thing, and we're definitely going to be seeing more content. If you have any things that you'd like to see covered, I do lean on the recording side. That does encompass everything. But if you have any thoughts at all that you'd like to see on this channel, Helix related, please let me know. That's what the comment section is for. And if you did enjoy this video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell. And remember, you don't need a band to rock and roll, and I'll catch you in the next one. Ready? Yeah. Am I late to the party, or have I already missed the boat?
Hey, Dan. What's going on?
Oh, man. Let's try that again. Am I late to the party, or have I completely missed the boat?
How you doing, Dan?
Well, hey, man, I wonder what happened to you.
Buy a new guitar.
Oh, I'm sure you did. But the question is, am I late to the party, or have I completely missed the boat?
How you doing, Dan?
Hey, man, I wonder what happened to you.
I went and bought a $4,000 guitar for one video.
Oh, I thought you were giving that to me. Am I late to the party, or have I completely missed the boat?
Hey, Dan.
Yeah, I wonder what happened to you.
I was at the post office. The rest of my guitar is coming in.
Oh, okay. I was wondering what was wrong with that thing.
Yeah, me too.
Now, am I late to the party, or have I completely missed the boat?
How you doing, Dan?
Yeah, I was wondering what happened to you.
Stop buying expensive guitars for one-off videos.
Is that for me?
Maybe.
Am I late to the party, or have I completely missed the boat?
Hey, Dan.
I was wondering what happened to you.
I was thinking about better lines to enter with.
Well, you better... Oh. I'm getting good at my line now.
Yeah.
Am I late to the party, or have I completely missed the boat?
Hey, Dan.
Yeah, I was wondering what happened to you.
Me too. I got lost.
Well, it's not that big of a bathroom.
It's a big toilet, though.
Am I late to the party, or have I completely missed the boat?
How you doing, Dan?
Hey, man, I was wondering what happened to you.
I was on my haircut.
Well, you might want to get your money back.
Yeah.
Finally, getting into a Line 6 Helix here in the studio. Oh, let me do that again. That was terrible. Yeah. Okay. Am I late to the party, or have I completely missed the boat?
How you doing, Dan?
Hey, man, what happened to you?
Talking to my ghostwriter to help me think of better things to say when I enter the room.
I can tell.